There has to be some common sense.
Yes, sir. They have the car stopped at 10th and Ranch, Michael Byler.
We still don't know who pulled the trigger. Hello, everyone, and welcome to Police Off the Cuff Real Crime Stories. I'm your host, retired NYPD Sergeant Bill Cannon, a 27-year veteran of the NYPD. You know, folks, when we cover these cases from across the nation, we sometimes see the best in policing, sometimes we see the worst in policing, sometimes we see the best in investigation, and sometimes we see the very worst in investigation. And we, with our experience on this show, we're not afraid to comment on it. When we see outstanding police work, as is, I've mentioned it numerous times in the Eliza Fletcher case that happened last year. She was the Memphis mom that was jogging past the University of Memphis and was kidnapped off the street and attempted rape and murdered. The Memphis police and the FBI, they just did an incredible job in that investigation, resulting in an arrest so quickly and the identification in the perpetrator in that case. The same thing when we saw this case in Oklahoma, just horrific police work. And we will comment on it. So I don't want to be accused that we don't speak out against the police when it's warranted, because we will do that. We speak out against outstanding police work, and we speak out against very poor police work. And that goes for federal agencies as well, not just local police. Anyway, here's a case from Park City, Utah, and it's been all over the nation. Kouri Richins. I mean, look at that, how she looks, a very innocuous face, but actually beautiful woman, and she's being charged with murder. She wrote a book about grief, about her husband when he died. Now she's charged with his murder. According to the New York Times, she wrote a children's book to help her three sons process their father's sudden death. And prosecutors said this week she poisoned him with a lethal dose of fentanyl. After Kouri Richins' husband Eric died suddenly last year, she wrote a children's book that she said would help her three boys process the loss, comforted by the knowledge that their father would always be with them. On Monday, a little over 2 months since the book Are You With Me was published, Miss Richins, she's 33 years old, was charged with murdering her husband by poisoning him with a lethal dose of fentanyl at their home outside Park City, Utah. An autopsy and toxicology report determined that Mr. Richins, 39, had 5 times the lethal dosage of fentanyl in his system, and that the drug was illicit and not medical grade. The medical examiner also concluded that the fentanyl had been ingested orally, according to court documents. Miss Richins published Are You With Me? That's the book she wrote about grief on March 7th, just over a year after her husband's death. A few weeks later, she appeared on KTVX-TV in Salt Lake City to promote the book, which follows the story of a boy who lost his father but is reminded of his presence. A detention hearing is set for May 19th. A lawyer for Miss Richins did not immediately respond to a request for comment. According to court documents, on the evening of March 3rd, 2022, Miss Richins and Mr. Richins were celebrating the closing of a sale on a house that Miss Richins, a real estate agent, had sold. She made her husband a Moscow Mule, a cocktail, in the kitchen around 9 p.m. and brought it to their bedroom, where Mr. Richins drank it in bed. I don't want to go over the whole investigation because we will do that, but just incredible, like that this can happen and that people think that they can get away with murder. I guess it's an amazing thing that people actually do feel that they can get away with murder this day. With me today to discuss this case is straight out of Brooklyn, retired NYPD detective Phil Grimaldi. How you doing today, Phil?
I'm doing pretty good, Billy, and I'm kind of interested to get into this case. This is a real winner, this one.
You know, Phil, all of these cases, and And sometimes I'm baffled sometimes, and someone from the media actually did make this statement. Why did it take a year? Like, are you kidding me? The ignorance to that statement is baffling to me. Like, do they want there to be the flimsiest of charges, or do they want the charges on this case that no doubt is complicated and no doubt has a lot of electronic, digital, he said, she said interviews with people, even from the grave? Her husband was speaking because, of course, the autopsy. So when people say, why does it take a year? All right, just be quiet, please. And we're going to educate you on that. Watch Police Off the Cuff, Real Crime Stories. Comments?
Well, right off the bat, Billy, I mean, this is not an episode of CSI Miami where you have a team of forensic investigators where you can just throw stuff on their desk and in 2 minutes they figure it out. It doesn't work that way. This case originally was reported to the police as an untimely death, a person who appeared to be in good health, almost middle-aged, and, initially thought to be an overdose. But I am sure, based on the facts that we're hearing now, that there were some people, friends, that came forward and said that there had been this previous incident. This incident took place where he died in March of 2022. The month before Valentine's Day, he had gotten real sick, and he told a friend that he believed his wife was trying to poison him. So again, this is not your just average, investigate DOA case turned into a murder investigation. And like I said earlier, a lot of the stuff that we know in this case does not happen quickly. When we have a person who dies from a narcotic overdose, it takes usually 6 to 8 weeks to get the toxicology back from the medical examiner's office. So right off the bat, you're talking about a 2-month delay in finding out exactly what the cause of death was. So now we have to put together some facts, details, interviews, the electronic evidence. You don't pick up a phone and say, give me all the information on this cell phone. It doesn't work that way. So again, there's a lot of work that went into this case. And like you said, Billy, you don't want to put together a case that could easily be overturned, or, you wind up with an acquittal, charges just go away. We don't want that. You want to build a case a little at a time, build the bricks together. So when we do make an arrest and we go into court, the prosecutors have a lot to work with to get a conviction and get justice for the victim.
Absolutely. Milwaukee Civilian, thank you so much for the $25 super sticker. Thank you for your expertise, compassion, and professionalism. Police Off the Cuff deserves an enormous audience. Thank you so much, Milwaukee Civilian. You've been supporting us for a long time, and that doesn't go unnoticed, and I really appreciate that.
Absolutely.
I'm going to go back to a canonism, and you guys that listen to this show, I use the term perpology, and I know we don't think of this this rather attractive woman as a perp, but that's exactly what she is. She's been arrested for the murder of her husband. Now, when I talk about perpology, and a lot of you guys appreciate that word, I'm sure, but what we're talking about is the study of the perpetrator. And what does that mean? We want to look into their background, not just around the time of the incident, but way before the time of the incident. Who is this person talking to? Does Kouri Richins does she have a side guy? Was that the reason she was trying to get rid of her husband? How about the financials? We learned that there was a $3 million insurance policy on her husband. Could that be motive? We find that out through the perpology and through looking into the background of the perp. Did she speak to anyone? Who'd she call? Who was she text messaging? Where was she going on the night of the incident? There was some real serious evidence that night. She claimed that she fell asleep in another room, but yet they found out that she had been shut her phone off and been on it 2 or 3 different times over the period that she claimed she was downstairs sleeping. Why are you lying? Folks, you ever think of that? If she was clean as the driven snow, why is she lying about something that would be, if you were innocent, an innocuous thing like that? Go ahead, Phil.
2 quick points. It's amazing how detective minds think alike, because all the things you said in the early part of your statement that you just made, I'm right there with you. The perpology, we want to study What was the marriage like? Was there any issues in the marriage? Perhaps there may have been some domestic violence reports filed with the local police. So we're going to look into that. We're going to talk to friends, find out what they believed was the relationship between the two. So again, that's one of the things we might look for with motive. But Billy, the last thing that you said about the text messages, super duper, very, very important, because she tells the police she went into the other room for 3 hours after slipping her husband a Mickey, I'm going to say, because that's what she did. She made him a Moscow Mule. Apparently there was fentanyl in this drink, and he goes out of the picture. But she claims she's in the other room for 3 hours when one of her children had night terrors. She claims she never picked up a phone. She had shut it off. That's why she didn't get any messages from him or anything like that. And then they find, when they do the investigation on the phone, that the phone was activated several times, text messages back and forth, and they were erased. So now what are they going to do? They're going to take it one step further and try and get those text messages from the cell carrier. One of the many things that were done on this case. She started, like you said, Billy, she started lying right in the beginning of this investigation. Once those lies are uncovered, the investigation just takes the natural track towards this young woman.
An amazing thing here, folks, in this investigation is this wasn't the first time she tried to kill him. She actually tried another time and failed. He lived. Apparently, he actually injected himself with his son's EpiPen because he couldn't breathe, and he took a bunch of Benadryl. That apparently saved his life. My wife gets one shot at killing me. then I'm out of there. You try to kill me once, I take it you don't like me, or there's some reason you're trying to get rid of me.
Good point.
I don't know. Point. He's stuck, and he did tell his family that if something happens to me, it was Kouri that did it to me. So he had some knowledge that something was rotten in Denmark, as they say. Something was not okay. I want to play this from. This is from Court TV, and I want to play a little bit of this here.
A mom who wrote a children's book on grief after her husband's death. That's all good. However, she's now being charged with his murder. Investigators say that Kouri Richins killed her husband, Eric, with a lethal dose of fentanyl in March of last year.
Court documents reveal that text messages between Kouri and an acquaintance show she allegedly got prescription pain pills just days before the murder. About a year after Eric's death, Richins published a children's book about dealing with the loss of a loved one.
It completely took us all by shock. And we have 3 little boys, 10, 9, and 6. And, my kids and I kind of wrote this book on the different emotions and grieving processes that we've experienced last year.
And Richins is set to appear in court for a detention hearing next week. Affiliate KTSU takes a look back at the case and breaks down a timeline of key events.
I want to take you back to 2 months before the alleged murder. According to the search warrant, back in January, Kouri Richins logged into Eric's life insurance policy with his business partner and changed it so that she was the only beneficiary.
How do you do that? How do you log into someone else's life insurance policy that's not yours? And then how do you do that? I just think, wouldn't that say, like, wait a minute, there's a trail of who did that? She had to sign into the computer. She had to have someone get the code and get her in. And then she changes. I mean, wouldn't they ask? Well, if he died, they couldn't ask him. But who changed this? And then, of course, you're leaving a trail that you changed it to yourself. And then your husband just winds up dead. You don't think anyone's going to look into that?
Yeah, that's pretty fishy, Billy. That's, if you have an insurance policy and you log on, perhaps maybe the husband did give her access to the account. God forbid something happens to me, you go right to this insurance policy. But maybe unbeknownst to him that she did change the beneficiary. Again, it leaves a trail. One of the other mistakes that this young woman made on this case.
Phil, I just checked my insurance policy. No, I'm just kidding.
I'll be checking mine at the end of once the show is over.
I'm checking them tomorrow. Yeah.
Eric was notified by the insurance company, and he changed his will and life insurance over to his sister. According to the family, he never told Richins that he cut her out of the will. Then on Valentine's Day 2022, Eric told his family Richins brought him a sandwich, and after one bite, he broke into hives and couldn't breathe. The affidavit says that Eric told his family that if anything happened, she was to blame. Then on March 4th, Eric died from an overdose of fentanyl. The medical examiner said the level in his system was approximately 5 times the lethal dosage. A year goes by and Richins publishes Are You With Me, a children's book about a child grieving the loss of their father. Meanwhile, there's an ongoing estate battle over approximately $3,600,000 between her and Eric's sister. During the investigation, detectives discovered that Richins asked around for fentanyl, specifically, quote, some of the Michael Jackson stuff. She was arrested May 8th and charged with aggravated murder. Richins' next court appearance.
Again, she asked around how? She asked around probably by text message, by phone calls, all which leaves a trail, all which leaves a record to the astute investigator when he's targeting someone. All of those things, of course, her cell phone, they would get a warrant for it. They would search the whole phone from between certain dates. And she doesn't know all of this stuff is going on because, look, the police kept it quiet. And, you know, that's why it takes a long time. You keep it quiet. You don't show anyone your hand, as we always lament that the broadcast media always gets upset that, oh, why are they taking so long? You know, we saw that in Idaho, in Moscow, Idaho. 6 weeks, they're not satisfied that there was no arrest yet in the murder, and they wanted to know if it was a cold case. In this case, same thing. 1 year. 1 year was too long for the media. Why is it taking so long?
You know, those text messages, you're creating a permanent record of a conversation. And I'm just going to take a quick exception with reporters said that the person that she was texting was an acquaintance. That person had been arrested for selling controlled substances previously. I'm going to label that person as a drug dealer. That's what that person is to me. And clearly she asked for the drugs the second time, something stronger, Michael Jackson stuff, obviously looking to, cause great harm to her husband.
Well, the Michael Jackson drug is something called propofol.
Yes.
And they use that as an anesthetic. In fact, I've had medical procedures and, they give you that and you're out in like 3 to 5 seconds. You're just out cold and you don't remember anything after that. So
I've had it as well, Billy. I've had it as well. And I got to tell you, I could clearly understand how a person could become addicted to that stuff because, again, it puts you out, like you said, in a couple of seconds. And for whatever reason, you do feel like you rested when you come up, when you wake up from that stuff. So I've had it a couple of times on medical procedures myself, an extremely powerful drug.
Absolutely.
Appearance is scheduled for next Friday, May 19th. Reporting in the studio, Emily Tenser, Fox 13 News, Utah.
So incredible. But again, nothing, 100% obvious that's a slam dunk is going to say good investigation. Good investigators are going to look into the background. The family, part of course, the Perpology is studying the family members, talk to the family. And that also comes with the victimology. You want to talk to the husband, Eric, the husband's Eric's family. Look, he signed his will over to his sister. And now that he's dead, the sister and Kouri are battling over it. But, it'll be all academic. If Kouri gets convicted of murder, I can't see any insurance company paying it off to her anyway, with the facts and circumstances that she fraudulently tried to change the recipient of the will to her instead of to his sister.
Billy, there may be something in family court law or maybe in the state of Utah where a spouse automatically becomes a beneficiary. But if he changed his will and he's of sound mind, I don't think that there's going to be any case there to try and win that money. I'm curious to know. Now, she wrote this book about dealing with grief. This was a self-imposed grief that she put on her children, basically. If she killed her husband, she self-imposed the grief onto the children. I'm wondering if she had this plan before she decided to kill her husband if she knew that she was going to go ahead and do this thing with the book. Maybe some way in her mind to try and rationalize, killing her husband. She came up with this concept of, writing the book about grief. It's really, really absurd. It's kind of, out of the norm of what we see in cases like this. So again, a very, very cunning, evil person at hand here.
Murdered the father. How does that come in, or does it? I don't know that it does, Joseph, but what are your thoughts?
That's definitely a curveball. I mean, in terms of the trial, I think that the prosecution would want to keep that out and the defense would want to bring it in. However, if it does come in, I actually think that it could help the prosecution more than it would hurt them. Everybody's heard the term self-serving. The prosecution can easily pinpoint that in light of all the other circumstantial evidence, putting her as the killer here, in terms of making a self-serving document to try to throw the police off, to try to, put herself in the clear.
It's crazy looking at these pictures, and there are a number of them where they look seemingly happy. They're at events, they're out in public, they're smiling, touching, arms around each other. And then you hear the allegations against her. And what I never understand, and unfortunately in our society, and it's not right, which is why I'm pointing it out, people look at people and say, oh, they did it. Look at how they look. Or, oh, she never could have done that. She is beautiful. Well, let's just put all that aside and say it doesn't have anything to do with how a person looks. Crazy like a fox. But to hear yet another case like this, Michael, where she's accused with this murder of her husband with young children, it just doesn't really make sense.
It doesn't make sense, but I'll tell you what, Joseph, if you want to get accused of a crime of murdering someone that you love, all you have to do is mess with the life insurance.
Yeah.
And they are going to come after you right away. She had the gall to go in and with a business partner, change the beneficiary on the life.
I would like to know if that business partner potentially is her new lover. He gave her an assist with getting into the will. And, I just want to comment on what they were talking about. We are all guilty of looking at people and say, oh, that's person's, look at him, he's guilty. Or look at her, she's got. And of course, you look at this person and she's perfectly beautiful looking, and you would never suspect her of committing a heinous crime like this. But guess what? You can't be disarmed like this, and you can't. And Phil, you know it yourself. I've seen detectives, and I'll be quite frankly, when they were interviewing a beautiful woman, and they were like, and the woman was lying to them up and down, and the guy came out and says, "Yeah, I believe her." And I had this one guy in mind. I said, "She just lied. Everything she said to you was a lie." And I put another detective in there, and he came out and he goes, "Yeah, she just admitted to everything." And I was like, you can't do that. I guess we're all guilty of it in some way or another, but you have to leave your emotions outside the box and go in there and be professional and be a detective and do your job, not be swayed by. And again, we are all swayed in all kinds of different situations in how people look. There's no doubt in that.
There's no question, Billy. And I'll use Brian Kohlberger as an example. When you look at him, you could see evil. Now, you look at this young lady. She's a pretty young lady. Perhaps maybe she doesn't look like a murderer. But again, we don't know what was going through her mind. What was the, like you said earlier, the perpology. What was she doing in the previous weeks and months before this alleged overdose, but turns out to be what we believe to be a murder now? What was going on in her life? Was there, like you said, perhaps the business partner or another person? Was there another lover involved? Was there another person that she wanted to spend her life with? So again, those are all the things that the investigation is going to uncover and reveal. With a case like this, like I said, it started out maybe not so suspicious, an investigate DOA kind of investigation, maybe quickly went into a suspicious DOA. And again, with all the stuff that came forward, it really, the investigation really headed full steam towards this woman, Kouri.
Well, Phil, I think that the investigation right away took a turn right at the crime scene when she lied about her activities that night. When she lied about, I wonder if they actually even had vouched the glass that he drank, if they were thinking that far ahead. Because no, but there was information that he had been poisoned once before. So were the police aware of this? Did they treat this as a crime scene and not just a scene of where someone had an untimely death? And especially once she started to lie to them. And I don't know the time frame of her lies. Were the lies told right away, or the lies discovered later on when they checked her phone? So all of those things, it's easy to look back and say, oh, we should have did this or we should have did that. And that's one of the reasons whenever I had a big case, I would always like to do, and I got this actually from Chief Anamone, to do a critique of your work when the case was over and see what you did right and see what you did wrong so that in the future, you won't make the same mistake. And we all make mistakes on investigations. There's no one on this earth, the NYPD, cold case squads, the FBI, everyone makes mistakes in investigations. It's just that you don't want to make the same mistakes over and over again, and you want to do it correctly. And when you're aware of mistakes you made, to correct it for the next time.
All good points, Billy. And again, as a detective, you get called to a DOA, a person that didn't have any medical conditions or anything like that. There's no trauma to the body. Unknown if it's natural or if it's something suspicious. But when you get there, maybe the demeanor of the wife who was reporting, was she extremely upset? Was she beyond inconsolable? Those are some of the red flags that may have occurred early on. And I think that's a great point that you made. If there was some suspicion, if they had taken that glass that she served that Moscow Mule in, there could have been signs of fentanyl traces left behind in that glass. That glass could have been examined. Again, whether or not they were able to do that or were in that thought process at that moment, we really don't know. But I always look at the demeanor. I remember I had a homicide one time, and the victim's fiance, when we went to the house and made the death notification, it was the brother of the victim and the fiance, and the brother was inconsolable. The fiance barely broke down and cried. As it turned out later on, we believe that she may have been involved in the homicide. So again, some of the first reactions of people could be very telltale when you're doing an investigation, when you're conducting an investigation.
I'm going to play a little of Cuomo from the other night on this case.
Unbelievably dark, especially coming for someone who was not seen that way by a friend of hers who actually introduced her to the man who would become her husband. Her name is Linda King, and she joins us now. Linda, thank you so much. I know that this is a source of pain for you because you cared about both of these people very much, and you cared especially for Eric, and to hear about this is horrible. But that said, I do want you to give us your take on what kind of person was she in your experience?
To me, she was perfect. I mean, the sweetest girl. I mean, good personality, very smart. I mean, and I worked with her over a year. I've never saw anything that would be awful like what I'm hearing. Never.
No darkness.
It just breaks my heart.
And is it true that, to kind of counter the suggestion that she set this guy up, she had another guy the whole time, it was just about the money? You don't remember it that way in terms of she was shy about talking to him.
Yes, they were both shy about talking to each other. It was like, he had a company. One of his employees came in one day and said, "Oh, Eric likes, Kouri, Well, I said, "Come on in and let's, go over to her register and check out with her." He was, and they did. And she was like, "Oh my God, he talked to me," and they went on a date, and it was just perfect from then on. That I saw, and I was with her all the time at work.
And what did their relationship seem like to you?
I thought it was like a fairy tale relationship. It seemed beautiful to me, her and him, and have his business, and it just seemed beautiful.
So they get
Phil, there's that old expression: no one knows what lurks in the evils of a man's mind, or in this case, a woman's mind. What evil lurks in the
It's in the
mind of a
hearts and
man or a
mind.
woman,
Yeah.
right? And you don't know. And again, we're stressing here: don't judge a book by its cover. Of course, she looks like an angelic, beautiful woman, but look what would she? Well, she's being charged again. I must also realize and always say that she's innocent to proven guilty, but she's being charged with a horrific crime. And this apparently wasn't the first time. This wasn't her first rodeo, as they say.
Absolutely. And it's so sad because you have three small kids that don't have a father and now don't have a mother if she's convicted and goes to jail. So again, it's really, really horrible. And to think that, like you said, who knows what evil lurks in the hearts and minds of men and women. We don't know. She didn't appear to be this out of control psychopath. But again, you have to do some victimology and you have to do some perpology. Do we know if there was drug use between the two in the past? You know, how did she have the occasion to have contact with or access to a drug dealer? You know, was there drug use in the past? And perhaps maybe contacted this guy, let's say for marijuana, but now she contacting him and asking him for stronger, more lethal narcotics. And in the affidavit, it says that she used the ruse, saying it was for a client of hers, that this person had a back problem and needed pain medication. So again, very, very.
Yeah, so you get it off the street. You don't go to a drugstore. You know, you get it off the street, which fentanyl off the street is totally unreliable. Has killed more people than guns. You know, and it's like it's crazy. One of the persons in the chat said, "What she did this before? She did this before." No, what we said before is that she tried to poison her husband once before, and he saved his own life with a EpiPen and Benadryl because he couldn't breathe. But he had even notified his family that that she had attempted to poison him, and that's why he changed the beneficiary on his will from Kouri to his sister. So he was aware of this stuff. Folks, this is Police Off the Cuff, real crime stories. If you like real crime, true crime from a police perspective, then you're in the right place. Go on our YouTube, hit that subscribe button, give us a thumbs up, ring that bell, make comments. We love to read your comments. I try to respond to as many comments as I possibly can, but you're in the right place. And if you want to support us financially, we have a Patreon with 3 different levels. And we also have a YouTube channel membership with, count them, 5 different levels. And you see the folks in the green font. They're part of our YouTube subscribers, our family, our friends, and we really appreciate all of them. So
Phil,
Phil,
let me just expand on that last statement that you made with regard to the person in the chat talking about the previous time. Now, the previous time, this is how the investigators come to understand that they think that there was a previous attempt. Now, he gets sick on Valentine's Day 2022, which is like a few weeks before he's actually found dead. So what they did is they looked at the text messages, and a few days before is when she had contact with the drug dealer explaining that she needed narcotics for a friend, for a client that had back pain. So they surmising, putting it together that on Valentine's Day, when he turns up sick and he takes the EpiPen and he takes the Benadryl because he can't breathe, that they believe that was the first time that narcotics were slipped into either his food or his drink. And then a few weeks later, when she has further text messages with the drug dealer, she asks for the more powerful stuff. She asks for the Michael Jackson stuff. She's given fentanyl, which, as you said earlier, Billy, a couple of grains can kill a person. Again, very unreliable. He gets the fentanyl, which we believe in March, in that Moscow Mule. A few hours later, he's found dead.
Unbelievable. We play a little more of this.
Concrete, because he's a masonry guy. So I see him all the time, and he seemed so happy and so proud, so proud. He really was.
When you heard that he had passed, how was it explained to you?
When he was, well, one of his employees, a guy that I knew really well, I saw it on Facebook and I couldn't believe it. So I talked to him, and I said, "What happened to Eric?" And he said he had a brain aneurysm. And I go, oh no, he's so young, and they said that, young people have those. And that's what I thought. That's exactly what I thought until I'm hearing this stuff. The other Monday I heard it, and it just, I'm numb. I'm totally numb.
Folks, that's one of the things also, and I've seen murder scenes, poisonings, and stuff like that, where the relative discouraged the authorities from doing an autopsy. And in a case like this, you could see them. Well, we've seen in other jurisdictions, other cases, that they cremate the body before they could even do an autopsy. If they did that, she may be walking free, but they did do an autopsy. And as we know, it takes anywhere from 6 to 8 weeks for the toxicology to come back. So in 6 to 8 weeks, it came back, and he had 5 times the amount of fentanyl that it was needed to kill him. So there's no doubt that what she meant to do, Phil.
Well, I'm going to go by NYPD standards. A person that is found dead in that situation without any clear signs of trauma to the body, doesn't have any medical conditions, an autopsy is going to be mandatory in New York. Obviously, maybe in other places in the country might not be. But again, if there was no autopsy, Bill, you're making a great point. She might have gotten away with the perfect murder. However, there was an autopsy. They find the fentanyl. And I believe in between the time that he's first reported, that he's found dead, to the time that the toxicology comes back, I would think that friend that he had confided to and said that, he believed his wife had poisoned him on Valentine's Day. That person probably came forward, told investigators. And I think that the investigators probably had a jump on it. Again, the autopsy results, the toxicology, explaining about how there was a high level of fentanyl. That may have just been one extra piece of the puzzle. Now they had a direction to go in. Let's find the drug dealer who sold the fentanyl. And again, that drug dealer is going to be very, very important for the prosecution. I am sure that they are going to get a hold of that person and have them testify that they did sell the narcotics to Kouri in this case. So again, there's a lot of different pieces of circumstantial evidence that will be coming together. And like you always say, Bill, it's brick by brick by brick. And when it comes together, it's going to be hopefully a conviction for the murder in this case.
Folks, some of you, when you're listening, you don't know like the criminal mind or the criminal underground. Drug dealers will sell their soul to get themselves off. If you think they have any loyalty to the people that they sell their drugs to, there is no loyalty. There's no honor among thieves. I'll put it that way. And I'm sure they're going to cut him a deal and not charge him for his testimony against Kouri Richins.
He could be culpable for manslaughter, Bill. Obviously,
yes,
if you want to make so like you said, they may hit him with that and say, listen, you either cooperate or wait, and you want a manslaughter charge, because the text messages are there. So it's not going to be too hard to prove that he was the one that provided the narcotics.
Infamous truth teller, police off the cuff. My apologies. There's typos in the last message. I was trying to say, I background check everybody. I don't care who they are. You never know anymore. Don't let looks deceive you. Infamous truth teller. That's why you're called the infamous truth teller. You're telling the truth. Absolutely. That's so correct. And something, in this day and age, look, for a lot of jobs now, they want to see your social network. They want to see your, that's why for jobs like the police department stuff, you're better off not being on Facebook, not being on Instagram, not being on YouTube, because they're going to check all of that before you get a job. Same thing with the military, any high classified job. They're going to check all of that. So if they're going to check on that for a job, a background check, how about a criminal check? They're going to check everything about her. I don't know what her social media imprint was or fingerprint was, but I'm sure she was probably on social media. And it's the same thing with your cell phone. The cell phone is the 21st century, holy grail of evidence. Let me put it that way, Phil.
Absolutely, Billy. And again, the way social media is today, it's very impulsive. So somebody cuts you off and almost caused an accident. You drive, you get home, and you post on, there's some knucklehead almost made me get into an accident. Maybe later on when you calm down, you might not have did that. But again, there's a lot of impulsiveness with social media. I think that that's going to be something definitely has to be looked at. Perhaps there was an argument she posted about, she doesn't get along with her husband or whatever. And again, you make the point about the cell phone. The cell phone technology today is so key in so many criminal investigations and so many prosecutions. And the technology gets better and better every day with these phones. The thing is that you have to be able to get into them. A lot has gone on with Apple and different companies with the cell phones where they didn't go along with law enforcement to give the information. However, the subpoenas are usually worked out, and a lot of times they're able to get it. But there's a treasure trove in every one of these devices when it comes to investigation.
Too deep. They found the drug dealer. Yeah, no, that was easy, right? In her text messages, that is cooperating with a murder case for drugs he provided. He's done. No, I don't think he is done. I think he's going to cut a deal, and they won't prosecute him in exchange for his testimony. Maybe they'll give him a year. Maybe they'll give him 2. Maybe he won't get anything, because if there's a cooperation agreement, it's done through an attorney. You don't just sit down there with a district attorney. Your attorney sits down with the district attorney and you cut a deal. And if his testimony is as important as we think it is, his deal may be pretty good. It may be he won't get prosecuted. Phil?
Well, Billy, he's obviously been arrested for it once before. It's been reported. He was arrested for selling controlled substance. So now he has access to narcotics. So he has more than just this murder case that he can deal with. He could say, well, I'll deal on this case. I don't want jail time. Maybe I'll give him probation, but I'm also going to give you my connection for the narcotics. So again, there's a lot that he can offer to prosecution. Whether or not they're going to play hardball with him and say, no, we want jail time, that really they have to look at what it is that they have on him, what it is he can give them. And like you said, a negotiation between an attorney and the prosecutors will take place. They're going to want him to be able to testify, or they could just charge him and then say, here's the text messages, and you have to just, we can name this guy. He's a felon. He's been arrested before, and the jury can come to their own conclusion. But it would be much better, I think, if he was to come into court and testify that, yes, I did provide the narcotics. You have a text message as opposed to a live person making a statement. It's a little bit more powerful, I would think.
Folks, those of you that just joined us, we're talking about Kouri Richins, who is a Park City, Utah mother who is being charged with poisoning her husband with fentanyl, 5 times the amount that was necessary to kill him. And the reason this became such a media event is because she wrote a children's book called Are You With Me? In regards to helping children deal with the grief of the loss of a parent. So you can think of that also as almost like premeditated in taking the suspicion away from her. Oh, I wrote this book. Let's see what Good Morning America said about this. This is why they were so interested in this case.
A Utah mom who wrote a children's book about grief after her husband's death. She has now been charged with killing him. Kana Whitworth joins us with the latest. Good morning, Kana.
Yeah, Robin, good morning. So Kouri Richins appeared to be a grieving widow, but authorities say she was hiding a dark secret. And according to court documents, her husband warned his family prior to his death that if anything were to happen to him, she was to blame.
This morning, a Utah widow who authored a children's book about how to cope with grief following the death of her husband is now accused of murdering him.
My husband passed away unexpectedly last year. He was 39. It completely took us all by shock.
Authorities arresting Kouri Richins, a mother of 3, this week and charging her with first-degree aggravated murder. Investigators say in early March of last year, Kouri poisoned her husband, Eric. The 33-year-old then telling 911 she found her husband of 9 years lying unresponsive and cold to the touch at the foot of their bed, saying she had given him a Moscow Mule cocktail earlier to celebrate a business deal before falling asleep in one of their children's beds. A medical examiner later finding Eric had 5 times the lethal dosage of fentanyl in his system. According to a search warrant, Eric had told a friend just weeks earlier he suspected his wife was trying to poison him when he fell ill after a Valentine's Day date. The warrant claiming Eric broke into hives and couldn't breathe, eventually having to use his son's EpiPen and Benadryl before passing out for several hours. Court documents allege Kouri, on 2 separate occasions, bought $900 worth of pills from a dealer. The first time looking for something dangerously potent, even asking for the Michael Jackson stuff, referring to the King of Pop's overdose death from a different powerful painkiller.
I will tell you, based on experience, extremely common that when one spouse kills the other, they tend to leave a fairly easy trail for law enforcement to follow.
And just last month, Richins appearing on a local television station to promote her book, which she says she wrote to help her 3 young sons grapple with the death of their father.
They're not living this life alone. Like, Dad is still here. It's just in a different way.
According to the search warrant, in January of 2022, Kouri had changed Eric's life insurance policy, making her the sole beneficiary. But when the insurance company notified her husband of the change, he removed his wife from the policy and his will and was looking to get a divorce.
Another red flag in almost every domestic homicide is insurance policies.
Now, Kouri's attorney has declined comment, but family members are filing for guardianship of the couple's 3 sons. And you guys, she has another court appearance later this month.
Unbelievable. You know, Phil, in Hebrew, they would say she's got chutzpah. In a copism, they'll say she's got a pair of balls. You know, Italianisms too. She got a pair of balls. You know, look at what she was doing. I mean, I hope you guys don't mind that I use that expression, but look what she was doing. She's trying to take any kind of suspicion away from herself by writing this book and acting like the grieving widow all the time. You know, the police are building this case, as you say, brick by brick, building this case against her. And she probably thought, I'm home free, man. This book's going to do well. I'm going to get that insurance money. I'm going to get away with this. Guess what? The long arm of the law, and as we say, the wheels of justice turn very slowly. A little too slow for the broadcast media, but that's too bad.
You know, Billy, I think that's kind of routine to ask in an investigation of a person that dies that doesn't seem to be sick or anything. Was there a life insurance policy? Does she tell them yes? Does she tell them no? Do they look into it and find that he just recently changed the beneficiary from his wife to his sister? Perhaps he consulted a divorce attorney. And one other thing, Billy, when she was arrested, she was also charged with possession of GHB, which is considered the date rape drug. It also is used for treatment of sleep disorders and things of that nature. I believe possibly ADHD as well. So again, what was she doing with that? I mean, fentanyl, GHB, some other narcotics that was purchased the first time. All of these things are going to be just an extra nail into the coffin of Kouri Richins when it comes to the prosecution.
You know, Phil, on every one of these cases, and I just want to, you know, give this to our subscribers, our fans, the folks that are listening, is that a cell phone comes into play in probably every single investigation that we've spoken about on this show. A cell phone, Brian Koberger, I mean, Murdoch, Alec Murdoch. Think of the cell phone and the video that his son took, which put him at the kennel at a time that he was unaware of, and he lied about it until he found out about it. And then he was like, oh, you know, and we talk about this electronic evidence and how important it is. And then documentary evidence, for example, this will. Who knew about this will? Well, the sister did. Who knew about, you know, the record of her going into the computer and trying to change the beneficiary? Boom, there's a record of that. Every time you log into the computer, there's a record. So all of these things, does it mean she killed him? No. We circumstantial evidence from which inferences are drawn. But when you have tractor trailers full of circumstantial evidence, it becomes very, very, very powerful.
Absolutely, Billy. And again, I think you're making a really good point that in a lot of these cases, we're seeing like 2 or 3 things that lead to the arrest and the conviction of the person. The cell phone technology, video cameras. There's video cameras everywhere. And then again, social media, whether it be searches that they do on the computer or social media. So those three components seem to be in a lot of these cases. In this particular case, the cell phone is going to really be very, very important. I don't think a video camera is going to come into play with this thing unless when she had the narcotics purchase, if there was video of her making that purchase, that could be possible. And again, the social media and computer, whether or not she was doing searches or anything like that, is also going to be looked at, I'm sure.
Well, the testimony of the drug dealer that sold this to her, that'll be a very powerful piece of evidence. Let me play a little bit more of this. Is from Fox, I believe.
That represents that it only has so many milligrams of fentanyl in it. It's going to, these are being put together by, non-professionals. So it's easy to overdose on fentanyl, unfortunately, and it takes a very small amount. So her defense would have likely been that he had a opioid problem and then he accidentally overdosed, like we've seen in the media with celebrities. But that's a tough argument for her now because she was the one that was acquiring the drugs. And what they've learned from some of the families, the searches of the social media and the family's laptops, is that he was telling his family that he was concerned that she was trying to poison him.
Right. Yeah. A lot of really interesting details coming to light here. And the medical examiner, too, Greg, said that Eric Richins had 5 times the lethal dosage of illicit fentanyl, an opioid that's already 50 to 100 times more potent than morphine in his blood. I mean, you've worked a lot with narcotics. Can you talk about just how excessive that amount is in itself?
That's a massive overdose, and you don't need anything like that to, 1.5 times would have done the job. And so it's very unlikely that even in a pill that's made on the street, that you're going to have 5 times the amount of fentanyl in it, because that's just bad business. So that again sort of damages her argument that this was accidental. It's that's a massive overdose, and unfortunately, with fentanyl, it's a very small amount. I mean, 5 times the lethal amount of fentanyl is imperceptible. It was the drink she made was a Moscow Mule, which is a spicy drink anyway. You'd have never noticed it. That's not like a teaspoon of fentanyl. That's milligrams. Right. So it's more than 5 times the amount to be effective.
Right. And she had said that she was going to check on the kids who were sleeping. When she came back, she found him cold to the touch. So all of this information coming to light through court documents and hearing from police on this. How likely is it, though, do you think that police may have had their suspicions about Kouri early on, way before this arrest ever happened?
I think they had their suspicions from the initial.
Phil, 100%, because if he told his family to look out for her and she was doing some fugazi things, that's a Brooklyn word, fugazi. Fugazi. She was doing some fugazi things behind the scenes, like trying to get her name on the will. He clearly told his family, if I get poisoned, if I die, she did it, right? So the police definitely had their radar. They were on her. They knew already that she was a suspect. Absolutely. And something, when you think about how cool she was and is, that she probably has no criminal background, no criminal history, but yet she was cool enough to do all these things and kill her husband and do all these devious things behind the scene to try to collect his life insurance. And all while she has 3 of his children, that she apparently loves the children, and the children love their father. So killing their father was the answer to you trying to change your life. When you think of it, it's diabolical, and the evilness of it is beyond belief. Schmitty, thank you, Schmitty, for the $5 super sticker. Schmitty, I got to read I wanted to put what you wrote on the screen, but I passed you a little bit in the chat. All right, I'll just read it. Why would he take the drink after having suspicions and a previous poisoning experience plus changing the will? Maybe she schmoozed him beforehand. Schmitty, that's a good Yiddish word too, schmooze. You're right. I like that word, schmooze. Schmooze, we use chutzpah, all these different Yiddish words, and fugazi. So we're giving our audience a little glossary, a dictionary of New Yorkisms, So
Billy,
yeah.
her coolness about it is really stunning to me because, like you said, she went on television. Now, a person commits a murder and they think they got away with it. They're probably not going to want to talk about it too much, but yet she writes a book. She goes on TV. She has interviews about how she was so brokenhearted and the grief that she tried to explain to her children. It was brought on by her. It was a self-imposed grief, as I said earlier. So again, this reminds me of like a Ted Bundy. Ted Bundy came off as like a cool guy, a young, handsome guy that was turning out to be a serial killer. Again, she was very cool about this, to go on television and do interviews about the loss of her husband that she killed. I mean, I know it's alleged at this time and everybody's innocent until proven guilty. I get that. But in my wheelhouse, I think that there's enough evidence here to say that she did it. She definitely had a hand in it, along with that drug dealer. But the coolness is really, really stunning to me, to go on TV and to talk about it. Just really, really amazing.
Yeah, it's like there's ice running through her veins.
Yes,
that
yes.
she doesn't
Almost
have,
like a split personality too, because I don't know, just the kids. I think about the kids. You killed their father. You're going on TV. You're talking about like using the kids as a prop to make this book better. Again. Very, very. It's kind of disgusting, and
she
now
sells real estate during the day, and at night she kills her husband. It's crazy. Phil, want to take care of this here?
Sure. Joe Murray, attorney at law. Now, look, guys, if you found yourself in a jam and you're in need of legal counsel in the New York area, there's no better than Joe Murray. Joe Murray is a retired 15-year member of the NYPD, so he literally knows both sides of defense. He's a great criminal defense attorney, and Joe's also known as a boxer, so he might want to deliver that knockout punch on your case. If you need to get a hold of Joe, you can reach him at jmurray-law.com. That's his website. His telephone number is 646-838-1702, or you can email Joe at jmurray-law.com. Joe is a terrific criminal defense attorney and a big supporter of Police Off the Cuff Real Crime Stories.
Folks, tonight at 9 p.m., we're doing another show. Actually, you're doing a double-decker today. And we have Anna Markelin is coming on, who has a podcast called the Badass Confidence Coach Podcast. And she's a therapist. And she deals with grief and with coaching people in life, confidence issues. We're going to use her also to talk a little bit about Brian Koberger, the Moscow area in Idaho that lost those 4 students, Ethan Chapin, Zaina Knodel, Madison Mogan, and Kaylee Gonsalves. We always like to mention their names. We'll talk about that, how it affected the community, how it affected the university. Then we're going to also touch upon Alec Murdoch, our favorite lunatic, who is think about his personality, of what he was capable of, and just what a tangled web we
weave. I was just about to say that.
He invented that. He didn't invent it. I know it's a quote from someone else, but
he repeated it. So he said
repeated it. Yeah. And then, of course, the case that just occurred in Oklahoma, just craziness, and what it does to a community, what it does to the people in that community. And there's no better than Anna Markelin, who is, again, the Badass Confidence Coach. Tune in tonight at 9 p.m. You won't be sorry. We also have she's already a superstar, and she just started out in the YouTube community. And, I'm referring to Melanie Little. Everyone loves her. And can you blame them? And, of course, straight out of Brooklyn, Phil's going to do a doubleheader. He'll be there tonight. Myself hosting, and, of course, we're going to have the Badass Confidence Coach. So join us tonight at 9 p.m. Phil, your final thoughts.
Final thoughts. Listen, this case is no slam dunk. There's a lot of investigation that was already done. There's probably other stuff that's taking place now. Prosecution is going to have their hands full with putting the case together because she could clearly present this book and say, I didn't do it. My husband may have ingested the drugs on his own. He might have been using drugs I didn't know about. Look, I even wrote a book about it. So again, it's not going to be a slam dunk, but it sounds like there's a ton of evidence in this case. I think that when all plays out, I think that there's going to be a conviction in this case. Let's keep our fingers crossed. Justice for that victim and those young kids. Tonight's show at 9, I'm really looking forward to it. Bill and I have been through some very, very traumatic things in our careers, and we both dealt with PTS in different ways. And it's going to be great to hear, somebody that's going to understand and maybe give some, pointers or things that can help you to work through PTS and other things and dealing with grief. I think it's going to be a great show tonight.
Folks, thank you so much for tuning in. This is a matinee show. Hopefully we'll see you tonight at 9 p.m. Thank you for tuning in for Police Off the Cuff. Have a great day, everyone.
Stay safe, everyone.
One episode just ain't enough.